Briggs. I used to sleep on Briggs's couch. Must be about once a week, I think I was sleeping there for a good while. And it was lots of us that used to just hang out at your place. When are you joining us? How are we going to do this?
I don't know.
Do you want to pull it in?
I'm not a small girl anymore.
See?
I tell you. Oh, gosh.
See, we're up here now today because, you know, let's pull this. Pull it out this way.
No, it's not going to work.
Yeah, pull it out this way. Pull it out this way.
Sorry, I'll squeeze on.
People, live TV.
Sorry.
You got sit on this.
Okay.
Cool. We're going to try and do this.
Briggs!
One.
Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you.
So we're up here today because Charlie's downstairs with about 4 of her mates. They had a barbecue.
Oh, okay.
She knew how to do it. So what she did was she called her mates round to say, let's have a barbecue. And she thought that you could just throw a match on the barbecue and it would light. And I said to her, what time are they coming? Because I just got back. And I said to her, what time are they coming? And she said, in about half an hour. And I said to her, these things take about 10, 15 minutes to warm up. What, you know, half of them are coming on time, half of them are an hour late. What's going on? What are we going to... So I had to run out and go and get some fast lighting charcoal, get this and that. So we've been Superman and Superwoman for the day while she's standing there over the barbecue with her mates, and they think that just doing that makes the barbecue. And then, you know, what else?
So we're shattered.
Tired, man.
I know the feeling. Well, so.
Briggs, so here we go, right? Tonight we're talking about domestic violence. And one thing we love about you is that you always talk the truth. You stand up for justice. You don't like to see abuse. You've got 3 beautiful daughters, and your eldest daughters who, your 2 older daughters who I've watched since they had pixie tails.
Piggy.
Is it piggy tails? Pigtails, whatever. And cane rolls. You were very protective over them. You also had, I'm going to paint a picture of you. Tell me if it's wrong at any time. You also had a really positive demeanor. You always encouraged people. You were one of the few, what we might call prayer warriors. Yeah? You used to pray for people. Your home was always open.
So your arms, you could rock us out of our grief, man.
You gave a lot of love. You could preach and you could teach. You know your Bible. You taught me a lot about scripture and about God when I came when I met you in 97, 98. And you were never a fool. You were never a fool. Your eyes are wide open. If I want to double check something, I will call Briggetta and say, Briggetta, what do you think? So what do you know then about domestic violence, and how does Briggetta get caught up in that, being who you are?
I think when you are young, you make stupid mistakes. That's just the bottom line. You know, coming from the home and the background that I came from, which is why I was completely different bringing up my own children. I was green. When I left home, I was very green.
Green.
So, what I mean by that is that I didn't know a lot. I was the baby in the house. My sisters mostly did everything for me, and my mum mostly did everything for me. I went to church. Juanita will attest to this. I went to church, you know, Wednesday night prayer meeting, yes. Friday night choir practice, Thursday night getting ready for Sabbath, you know, Tuesday night social youth club at Brixton Church. It was a constant thing. I was in church the whole of my young life. So when I left and I went out, I was you know, you say from this perspective, or when I learned better, I understood differently. So, but I was fooled. I was fooled. I was convinced, I would say, into not understanding, but I think I just think I made the wrong choices. Bottom line, made the wrong choices, and because of that, I ended up in a domestic violence situation myself. You know, and I remember going through it as a child when my parents were when it was happening with my parents, and I thought, I'm not going to do this. There's no way this is going to be replicated. And I didn't see much, but the things that I did see, I was like,
what did you see?
What, when as a child? Oh, the fights, the arguments. I always remember this. This is seared into my mind. I remember one time my mum's hand was cut and it was bleeding, and I just was panicking because I didn't understand, and she didn't want to go to the hospital, but her hand was dripping with blood. And she was so calm about it, you know, she just wrapped it up, and I was just thinking, we need to go to the hospital. We need to go to the hospital. And this was another thing that happened as a result of my dad. So I saw fights with my parents, you know, and it was, I witnessed and heard fights with my family, with, you know, I had aunts, and, you know, I witnessed one of my aunts, she came and lived with us as a result of it, and she wasn't allowed to leave the house for 4 months because of it, because she was in hiding. So it was something I saw and I understood. You know, she wasn't allowed to go to church, she wasn't allowed to go anywhere, and she was petrified. And now, looking at her now, the shell of the person that she is now to who she was, I refuse to be that person.
When you say you refuse to be that person, are you saying when you left home, or
when I left my own situation?
You were never going for it again?
I was never going to do that, because we ended up in a home for 2 weeks because of my parents' domestic violence situation.
A shelter?
I just remember, because I was the youngest one, I just remember we were in a place that, because we had to be looked after by somebody else.
Right.
My story is nearly identical to yours in terms of my experience as a child. And as you said, there's certain things that stay etched into your mind, and as you get older, they don't disappear, they come on even stronger, because you start processing it, you start breaking it down, you start thinking, hang on a minute, did this really happen? Then you start having feelings of guilt, like, why didn't I do something when that was happening? Or say something, but you were so small, so you couldn't. And we too, you ended up in a home, but we as a whole family had to run and be in a refuge for about 1.5 years. And, you know, recent events have brought back on the same feelings again. And so that's why I was determined when I was younger as well to say, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to feel unsafe in my own home. History will not be repeated. But then everybody who I was being gravitated towards resembled my dad. Not in his face, but in his ways. It was like
a character.
Strong, bad boy, you know what I mean? No nonsense. And that's who I was going for. And I remember one of the guys who I really fancied in school, this girl came back to school a couple of days she was out for. She came back with a hand in a cast. Like, what happened to your hand? And she was going out with a guy. And she said he broke her arm because she didn't buy him back in the day C17 jeans. Remember them C17s? And there was big money. And the Averix jacket. There was money back then. And because she didn't buy it for him, he broke her arm. And I thought, that's who I fancied for years in school. That I pursued even after school, up until the year I met Kurt. And I was thinking, in my logic, you can't have this. This is a repetition of your nightmares.
And what it was like.
Thank God I haven't experienced domestic violence as an adult. Just being a recipient through, like by proxy, by seeing it done to my mum. But it's enough to still haunt. And a lot of people say, I think, even when we've spoken about it in circles where believers are, they think that God, as soon as you become a believer or you trust in God, it's going to go away. And it's still the thorn in my side, which I work on.
That's something I wasn't gonna do, because I saw my mum go through it. I mean, one of the biggest things for me, I remember when I was old enough, and my dad came to the house to see us, and he started bickering over my mum, and he stood up. I always remember this. He stood up as if he was going to fight my mum. All three of us just stood in front of him.
Yeah, same.
How old is he?
What?
How old is he?
By then I was big, man. So I was probably about 16. But all three of us stood in front of him, and I just looked at him straight in the face. I said, today is not that day.
Yes.
Today, if you put your hands on my mum, you are the one who's going to lose out. And I wasn't playing. And he knew I wasn't playing, so he just sat down. So, and I think he realized that because all three of us, we just gave him the look, you know.
Yeah.
But no, you know. And
Did you ever, when it came to yourself, I want to talk about your dad in a minute, if that's all right. When it came to yourself, so you've obviously gone through that at home in your young years, and then it came to you. Did you see it coming when it was your situation?
Well, no, you never see it coming. You never see it coming. I would not think that, I mean, I've been hit twice. My own dad has never put his hand on me. So for me, another man putting their hand on me is crazy stuff, you know, crazy for me. So the one time, I was in two situations, but the one time a hit landed on me, that had to be the last time. It wasn't going to happen again.
And you are fortunate, Briggs,
because
to sit here and say that, because there is, how many, what's the statistics? How many women die every week?
At the moment, it's like 5 now.
But I think as a child, I grew up quite resilient. I didn't have a choice, you know, because my dad wasn't in the home. We kind of had my mum being the mum and the dad, and we kind of learned to be quite strong in that. So I remember the one time I got a quarter box. It was so hard, honestly, my jaw moved.
Wow.
But I got so angry that you know when rage hits you from your toe, Curtis, all the way up to your head. The only thing I could do to retaliate was to kick back, and I kicked him straight in his private parts. And I remember it like it was yesterday. His head was on the floor and he was coughing up. He could have died.
We are not laughing, people. It's because we know Briggetta, and we know she ain't joking. He
could have died. In that moment, I would have been happy with that. And that's me being honest with you.
Yeah.
Because that was the thought to I said to him, you're to die, because you're not to ever put your hands on me. You know?
And he tried it a second time.
He tried the second time at the top of the stairs. He tried to push me down the stairs, and I grabbed hold of his clothing, and I thought, you know, if I go down the stairs,
Hey, listen, bear with me, man. Bear with me. Sorry.
You're coming with me down the stairs. And then the reality hit him that actually she's mad enough to take me down the stairs, you know? And that was it for me. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it for me.
Oh, gosh.
We are not laughing at this situation.
No.
It's because we know Briggs.
Yeah,
we know
yeah.
when she ain't playing.
No, we can laugh with Briggs, but I'm sure there's some folk listening. Sorry, you have to forgive me. There's some folk listening that might take it serious, but it's only because it's not just because we got history. It's because we've
been there. Guys. They just know me, guys. That's all.
Yeah. We know.
And they know how passionate I get about certain things. So
serious. A man has to think twice now. Do I finish you off, or do I just think, let me hold back, because we're both gonna dead it, right? That's a funny situation, but interestingly, if you didn't stick up for yourself, you could either be one of two things, and I think it worked out for you. One, you'd be dead, or two, you are where you are now. Interestingly, though,
I don't know, because my mum fought back as well, and with her might, she's a small lady, and he's a big man, and she fought back with her might. You know, and it was close to death on many occasions. But by the grace of God. So I'm happy you overcame like that in giving him a licking. But for our experience, and maybe for your mums as well, it was fight after fight after fight until one night it was like, enough of this.
Well, that's how I felt.
We're packing the bags and we're running.
That's what I thought. I mean, I was in exactly the same position. So what I did is I said, you know, I'm not doing this anymore. And I called the police. And I said, you lot need to help me because I don't want to be in this situation anymore. And that very same night, I packed my clothes and my kids' clothes and I left that house and I went into a refuge.
Wow.
And that's when I just met you.
And
that's just when I met you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know your history then for quite a while after.
Yeah, and that was it for me because I was like, I'm not going to do it. I was quite happy to leave it all behind. You know, my sister begged me to go back to my house just to get my chairs, my sofas. But I was like, that's it for me. I don't want anything that belongs to this anymore.
Yes, so
I just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. So for me, it was like stepping out of that into just normal. Just normal. I just wanted to be able to breathe. I wanted to be able to see the sky because I realized one day I was looking up at the sky and I realized, when was the last time I saw the sky? Because I spent so much time looking down.
Man, literally, Case.
Literally. I was walking one day and I looked up and I was like, the sky is so beautiful. And I was like, when was the last time I saw the sky? Because every day I'd been spending looking down. And I thought, that's not happening to me anymore. I'm not going to do that. And I felt empowered. I was in a refuge talking to other women and saying, we just got to stop here. Because there were women in that refuge who wanted to go back home.
Why?
Because that's all they knew.
That's all you know.
See, that's what I want to talk about. I don't know if you had a question, but that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. Because when I mentioned earlier that you were at a T-junction and I think part of your personality was to take no nonsense as well. So I think you were blessed with certain things to get you out, certain mindsets, certain characteristics. But a lot of people don't and are unable. And statistically, we're looking at about 40 incidents before a woman says, I'm going to call the police now.
35 to 40.
Yeah. Obviously, it's higher now. The thing is, what about the people? And I believe you might know, and obviously we don't want to throw anyone, obviously no names and nothing like that, but there are people that I know you know enough people that haven't got those cojones to just get out.
Yeah, and I know people who have suffered as a result of it. I know many people. I do. This is why I've always believed that that's part of the calling that God has given me, because I've come out of it on the other side, and I maintained, for me, mental stability. I've seen so many women who have come out of it, or they're still in it, because even if they have left the situation, mentally they're still in it.
What does that mean?
So the abuse they have suffered has taken something so much from them that they're still laden down by the burden of what they went through. So much so that it's held them in a stagnant position in their lives, and they are unable to walk forward because of it. And so for me, this is why I think this talk is really important, because, you know, it's only when if we don't share, then people don't know, because we could be talking and there's loads of people that would never ever say to you, this is what's going on with them. This is what they are suffering. This is what is happening to me, you know. And for me, the torture, you know, I was, when I decided that's it for me, I was working at the time, and he turned up at my workplace. They had to move me to a different location, and he turned up at, you know, he would make phone calls after phone calls. I had to get an injunction. It was crazy. He would call and call and call and call and call and call my phone all the time so that I wouldn't sleep. So I was sleep deprived. Do you understand what I'm saying? Constantly calling. I had to get a trace on my line. Then he would call with a private phone. Do you understand? So all these things that were happening, and I was just thinking, I've got to get out of this situation. And when I finally left, I mean, I remember before I decided to take that decision to leave, I had to go and think about what I was going to do. And I remember I went and stayed at a friend of mine's house, because she had gone away for the weekend. And I was sleeping and all the lights were off, because there was light coming in from outside. Do you know, I don't know how he found out, but he knew where I was, and he came to the house, and I saw him walking, because she lived on the ground floor. I saw him walking, looking, trying to look through the curtains. And I thought, no, this is it. I can't do this. I can't do this, because this will send somebody crazy. I'm not doing this anymore, you know. And the complete freedom that I felt as a result of coming out of it, it was just different. It was just different. It was just nice. I didn't, you know, I left all my babies' clothing, all of their crib, all their pictures, everything in that house, all because I didn't want to revisit that location.
Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I wanted to know, what gave you the ability to just say, right, after 2 times, that's it, rather than 35 times, statistically 40 times, statistically, why 2 and I'm out?
I think domestic violence isn't just domestic violence. I think it's a lot of other things. So I think you are suffering abuse from long before. It's the verbal violations, it's the mental abuse that you go through. It's just everything. It's everything. It's the liberties that are taken. And then I remember questioning myself, because I was brought up in a very happy home, a loving home. And I remember sitting there one day asking myself, when was I truly happy? And it's as if the Lord placed a picture in my mind. That's how I felt. And I got a picture of Pathfinders, church, like the happiness that I felt being, you know, free. That's how I felt. I felt free, just being around my friends, going to concerts, just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Enjoying my lifestyle. And that was the only time I could remember being happy. And I was like, why did I leave that? Why am I here? Why am I here accepting this? Dishonesty, I didn't know any of that, because if my mum left the house and she said, I'm going to work, I'll be back at this time, or my sisters had, I didn't know any of that, you know. Just having to learn certain things that I never knew before, you know, people taking you for granted and all of that. I didn't have that experience. I lived quite a sheltered life where people just loved you, and they, you know, you love them back, and if they said they're going to do something, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what I was accustomed to. So for me, I had to go back to that, because that's what I yearned for, because I wasn't going to do this for the many years. I looked at all the other people that I saw coming out on the other side, and I'm like, do you want to come out like that? Never. No.
Wow.
Never.
I've got a lot of questions for you.
Go, man.
Why did you have to think about what you would have to do before you left? So the thought of leaving, what was there to think about?
Loads of things. I had 2 children, and you know, it's
look, for me, if I take myself back to 2000, say roughly, or 97, 98, to your time, logically, even now, logically, run, get out. What's wrong with you? What's to think about?
And you know, that's the thing. You have to come to that conclusion. But you know, this is why women or men, whoever suffers this, they need to have space and time so that they can collect their thoughts and think about what they're doing. Because I remember I was like, I'm going to be on my own. And I'm like, you're on your own all the time. Like, you know, and then I thought, yeah, you are. And then I'm going to have to do everything on my own. You do everything on your own now. Yeah, I do actually. Do you know what I mean? And then I started to evaluate my situation, and I was thinking, but wait a second, what am I actually doing here?
Yes.
It's not, it's insanity. It's insanity, but you have to conclude upon that yourself.
But some people are still there.
Yeah, because another thing is as well, this is why I say to people, it's important to leave, because, you know, I believe in training up a child, because my mum left. So I learned that when you are abused, you do not stay.
Yeah.
So for women that stay, or men that stay, maybe that's what they saw. So they think this is the only way. They were taught this is what they need to do. And they had to learn a different way. Like my father wasn't the greatest father, but I had to learn a different way. And Curtis, you were the one of the people that showed me. I didn't know any different. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I didn't have great role models to show me that. Do you understand? So I had to learn differently. And we all have to learn differently. We all have to learn. So that was the first thing for me. Understanding and coming to the conclusion for myself that actually this makes no sense whatsoever. What are you doing?
In your experience, I'm going to ask you a question. You're not expecting this question. You have friends who have been or are in that situation. What are some of the common things that you are seeing with this situation with regards to, because I know you've seen a lot of people in this situation. What are the common things that you're seeing?
The common things, one of the things that is prevalent in my mind and is really important, this is one of the main reasons why I come forward and I speak, is that those who choose to stay mentally, it affects them big time. Big time. You know, mentally, it affects them. And to the point where they don't know who they are anymore. And that's the saddest thing. Because when you're looking in the mirror and you don't know who that person is, that is sad. So for me, that is one of the greatest things, that watching other people go through this and stay and lose themselves, lose who they are as people. That's a biggie for me.
What else?
If you have children, they're learning, they're understanding on what they grow with, because some of the children that I've seen come out of this, I know very well, they become abusers, or they just don't understand life, because it's so difficult for them to, they are so confused by the emotions that they've gone through, that they just don't understand how to walk forwards. They just don't. They're just stagnant.
Or second guess a lot.
Yeah.
Second guess themselves, second guess
Yeah.
a lot. Can be intimidated by a lot. I think if God forbid, if I was walking down a dark street and I could feel unsafe, somebody coming behind me or something like that, I will find something to put on the biggest front ever. But inside, I'm terrified. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what I did as a child. So I remember it coming back to me as an adult when we had a neighbor living on top of us. And I could hear the same rumbling that I used to hear, that kind of rumbling and muffled voices. And I remember just lying there pregnant with my son and feeling powerless, like I couldn't move, like I was a child who was, go in the room, shut the door. Do you know what I mean? Don't come out. And I sat there powerless. But when I saw the man, I felt like a giant, like I could jump him with the belly. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a stark contrast.
Because you were pregnant, that's what you're saying.
I could jump him, I could jump him, but inside I was so scared. I can do the two extremes. Do you know what I mean? And as I said, as a child, that's why I see it as something which I speak of often, because I say as a child who is now 45, it is so prevalent. It is so strong in my mind that I can hear the children rumbling, Briggs. And I'm like, stop the noise.
Even when they're playing?
Stop the noise. If they're play fighting, no, you can't do that. They can be play fighting with Kurt because he likes to do the jiu-jitsu with them. And I'm like, cut it, man, enough.
Is that what that's about?
Yeah, Kurt looks at me as if to say, like, you're spoiling the fun, but it just brings up everything.
Yeah, because you think it's going to go too far. That's the way you think it's going to be. And I understand that. I remember when we were living in London, there was a couple living below us. And they started fighting, and I could hear like they were killing each other.
Yeah.
My husband was like, "It's not your business." And
that's
Kurt.
Yeah. I said that to Kurt. He said,
"Oh man,
it's not your business." And I'm like, "I don't care." I'm calling. I picked up the phone and I called the police.
Yes, I do.
How I see it is, if she died, I will never ever forgive myself.
Do you know what? Let's go over that. That's an important point. Now, this happened. How many years ago was that?
13, 14 years ago.
Yeah. So
and you said, "What are you gonna do when you knock the door on? You got a belly in front of you." And I said, "I'll do something, and then I'll call you to back me up."
No. Let's be real. I'm gonna come to you guys comments in a moment, yeah, and throw them at Briggetta. Listen to this, right? We were in bed and we could hear pum 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 and a pum 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 pum. So I didn't know if they were fighting. I didn't know if it was she was getting thumped up, or if she was thumping him up. I didn't know. So Juanita's got her narrative because of where she's coming from, right? And I said, if we knock that door tonight and we say, yo, look, it sounds like you're busting her up, right? He could say, what are you talking about? We're play fighting. Or she's doing it to me. But the worst one would be, no, sorry about the noise, it was nothing. Goes upstairs and he finishes the job because of my big mouth. That's how I was thinking 13 years ago.
And you know,
yeah.
I was going to say, you see, for me, I didn't care about any of that. I want the police to come and get him because all I cared about was what was going on.
Hold on. Who was beating up who?
Huh?
Who was beating up who?
He was beating her up. You could hear her. You could hear her screaming her head off.
Okay.
And they were cursing, and you could hear her being flung across the room. And John was like, "It's not your business. It's not your business." I said, "No."
I can't. Yeah, I can't do it. I mean, I there was one time I actually knocked the door, and I went in with the belly, and I said to her, "I'm just coming to give you something," but he started to follow me around the house. So every time I was with her alone, he was following me, and I could see. And it wasn't until years later, then she said he had even thrown her down the stairs and all stuff like that. And then we used to see him, but he looked like such an upstanding member in the community. How you doing? And stuff like that. And I was just like, I nearly killed you one night, mate.
And for me and you, we take it on even more
personal. We
take it personal because when I see certain things or hear certain things, listen to me, it sends me to a different way.
Yes, me too.
It sends me to a different way. So
Briggs, you have to turn the light on, you know.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's getting dark now.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell these teenagers to just hold it down while you're doing that.
Yeah, man. Oh, listen, I'm being honest about how I was thinking. It's a complicated thing because I was I've had training in domestic violence. I've been on a couple of courses, right? Hosted by professionals, hosted by charities. And it's complicated. The thing to do in someone's mind might be to go up and say, what's going on? Whereas that could be the thing that gets someone killed. And at the same time, if you say nothing, that's the thing that gets someone killed. So what I couldn't hear at the time was who was fighting who. I don't know if it was play fighting, but we weren't sure. But in Juanita's head, she was more sure than I was. I just listened to it, I thought, But I understand. I've intervened. I've been driving down the road, Streatham Common, and this girl and guy have got blood on their face, black couple. And I was like, no, I'm going to stop. And the guy, Range Rover, crashed the Range Rover. They're both fighting in the street. So I went up to him and I said to him, bro, what are you doing? He goes, back off, bro, back off, bro. And I said to him, yo, I'm just letting you know, I'm not going anywhere. Then the girl took his side.
Do you see the madness? Do you see the madness?
You understand? She took his side and I was like, hold on a minute. I said to her, you need to tell me that you're safe. Now think about it, Briggetta. What could I do with that situation? What could I do? Do you know what I mean? So I was just telling her that I saw a couple they crashed their Range Rover, a young couple. They were really young, probably about 23, 25, crashed a Range Rover up the street. And they were both had blood on their face and they were fighting in the street. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. They were obviously coming from a party. And he was giving her something and she took sides with him. I was like, you know, so it's a complicated situation. Can I go through some of these comments before the...
Yeah, go ahead.
Before you go through the comments, I had a similar situation where I think I just had jail, new mum, and I heard this brother roughing up this girl outside her house. So I went out And then I came back in and I went out again. I just couldn't. It's like heart was racing, everything. And I said, "You all right?" to the girl. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And he goes, "What's it got to do with you?" And I said, "I'm just a concerned citizen who's hearing all this noise." So I was running up and down the stairs. And he said, "Well, you know what happened to the last concerned citizen, don't you?"
When was this? Was I running?
Listen, you was, but I know that you would have end up in prison by now. So I didn't tell you the full.
You could have told me that story.
No, I did, but he was gone. I let him go before I told you. And he said, and what he meant is that there was somebody who was on the bus who was telling someone to stop throwing chips at somebody else, and then some youth stabbed him.
Yeah.
So he said to me, "You know what happened to the last concerned citizen?" And that was that week. And I just said, I just was like, because the girl was backing him, I just said, "You have to work it out, love, because I'm not going to lose my life. I've just had a baby. I've got children. I'm not losing my life, because I'm not." But it was, every fight like that is my fight. I will be beeping the horn. I'll be shouting at the window. I want to knock the door. But then it's putting my life at risk at the same time, because the hold is so strong that some women are just like, "Get off, leave him alone."
Listen, I can tell you a story.
Go on.
A quick story. I won't say who it is, but I remember having a dream about somebody.
That's what you do. I just let everyone know. That's what Briggetta does. She has dreams.
I do. Yeah.
If she dreaming, you better be warned.
I had a dream about someone. I woke up and my heart was beating. And then the friend that I was living with came into my room and told me that they had a dream about the exact same individual. And I was like, "Come on, let's go." Got into our car, drove to that person's house. When I got there, I was knocking the door down, looked through the window, saw that there was a baby walking up and down on the settee. The baby was about 11 months old. Knocking on the door. I was like, "Why is no one answering the door?" The husband looks out the window and says, "Oh, the person's asleep.
Is it?
Can't come to the door." Curtis, I'm like, "Come and open the door now."
Nigga. Come on now.
Come and open the door. So it's like it took such a long time just to open the door. When I finally went upstairs, the person was in bed in a neck brace. Okay. In a neck brace. Couldn't speak. Couldn't move. That person was kicked out of a moving car. Do you know that I called the police? And the police said they'd been there already from the night before. And the female defended the male.
Yeah.
I know, before you read one more comment, Briggs, my last situation that I saw, I looked out the bedroom window, and we had very conservative Muslim neighbors at that time, 2-3 doors down. And I saw a woman, an Asian woman with the hijab, but it was down, so her hair was out, running with really light clothes on, barefoot, with a little baby in her hand. He was about 1.5, 2. And I opened the window wide, half naked, because we were sleeping, but I could hear the screams. And I said, "Are you all right? I'm coming down." She said, "No, no." She's running towards the high road. And the baby turned and looked at me. And I froze, because I said his eyes were like mine. And so I wrote a piece like, "I know those eyes." He was terrified. And she disappeared out of sight. I remember dragging some pants on and bra and everything else. And then by the time I got downstairs, opened the front door, she was gone. I didn't know that she was from that house.
just a few doors down.
It was a few doors down, but I guess when the shouting started to where it ended, that it had to be that house. And then I saw her maybe 2 days later, full face of makeup and hijab on, and she looked at me dead in my eyes, like, you don't know it's me, or do you know it's me? And I looked at her dead in the eyes, and she looked at me and then turned away really bashfully. And I was always wanting to catch her and say, I know, and you got a way out, but it was never made possible. She was always with somebody, or she moved very fast. And that was my last experience. I hung halfway out the window, shouted, got dressed, and she was gone.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? I'm glad we spoke about this part of it. I've got three more questions at least. So we're going to end this half soon, just after we read the comments, and then we're going to come back for second half. Is that all right, Bruce?
Yeah, that's more than fine.
Someone's saying here, Denolic. No, it doesn't even say that, but yeah. I can relate. When I moved away with my girls, I came alive. So they're referring to when you lose yourself, Briggetta. The cycle of abuse is hard for some to get out of. It looks like that, man. Can't see a way out. They are mentally scared, so they don't see a way out. That's disturbing. So they're referring to stuff that you said. And what people don't realize, this is your daughter now. This is Keisha. And you know what? Your two oldest daughters, I want my kids to turn out like them. They're great people. Not to say that your third one isn't. I'm just saying that.
No, because you've spent more time with them.
Yeah.
I understand. Don't worry.
Keisha, you're lovely. Josephine, you're lovely. All right. What people don't realize that if you have children, when you're mentally abused, your spouse also mentally abused your child.
Your children, yeah.
More,
so they're getting abused with you.
More reasons to run, man. Let's go down. There's more. Yes, when you leave, it takes years to get back to yourself. Children learn everything. Have mercy. I rebuke that. It takes time, but you can help the children. It's very hard, though. Pippa, when the decision is made to leave, it is more dangerous for the victim. They are more likely to be injured or killed during this period. This is why I was interrupted.
Listen to me. I'm going to tell you this. When I first decided that's it, I don't want nothing to do with this brother. Because it wasn't just me leaving the house that day that I made that phone call. Before that, there were so many things. So I was like, you're not coming back to my house. And I'm telling you, even going to work, they used to have to send a car for me.
Wow.
So one day, I was like looking out the window to see, because I used to leave my house at 5:45 in the morning. I looked at the front and I looked at the back to see if his car was there. And I was like, okay, so I can't see the car. And I came out and I'm just about to lock my front door. Looked over the balcony, and because he smoked, I saw him light a cigarette in the car. So it was just dark then. So that's how I knew he was outside waiting for me to come out the door. So I had to go straight back in the house and then call my workplace and say, he's outside. Someone has to send, so they used to send taxis for me to get to work. That's the kind of madness that I had to deal with.
And still standing.
Sorry?
And still standing.
Exactly. And that's the point that needs to be made. You can come out of it and still be standing at the end of the day. You know, for me... Hold back.
We're coming to that. We're coming. Save them bullets, man. Oh, man. Because we got
a few more comments before this cuts out.
Sometimes intervening when the woman is not ready to leave can be so dangerous. That's what was in my head. It's deep. I can't read it. Oh no. Call the police. Nowadays, the victim don't need to press charges. Her Majesty's service does it for the victim. It's different now.
So that's the difference between then and now. Because what happens is, if you press charges, even if you drop them at a later date, the police, If they discover that what's going on is actually what's going on, they will press charges against that person anyway.
Yeah.
This is key information, guys. Stay tuned, because in the second half, we're going to talk about getting out.
There's a serious question here. It says it happens in our churches as well. We'll get to that.
Oh, we're coming to that. Don't
And
worry.
then it says, how can we help an abuser? Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about that later.
Okay.
Because sometimes the fact is that they don't know anything better. The truth is that they might have seen their parents be abusive. So in their minds, that's normal.
So
We'll have to come to that.
Before we cut out, can I just say something about abusers?
Yeah.
You see, for me, and this has been my experience.
Yeah.
When you do something that's wrong, when you discover that it's wrong, you need to own up to that, and you need to say, okay, this is wrong. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to live like this, but accept that first of all, because I think that's the first step for anybody being able to walk forward. Because I think,
so you're talking about an abuser?
yes, because I think sometimes what happens is, you know, they say, oh, I didn't do that, or excuse me, so, you know, it didn't happen, or it wasn't like the way that you said it was. But you need to listen to the other person. They're the ones who went through it. It's not, do you understand what I'm saying? You need to be able to accept and own your stuff. You did this. And people have suffered as a result of what you did. So don't stand there and pretend like it didn't happen, because you know full well it did. The first step for an abuser, for me to help an abuser, is owning your stuff. Own the fact that you made, even if it is a mistake and you didn't know any better, own it. Has to be owned first before you can step forward. If you are not willing to say, I've done something wrong, then what are you saying?
And you're not talking about saying it to the wife either. You're talking about, we have to say, if he's gonna say, I'm doing this, I think it should be to a third party. I don't think you're owning up to anything, because abusers tend to say sorry after every event.
Too many times.
Yeah.
So it's, unless you admit it to a third party, you are not admitting anything really at all. We got literally 1 more minute, guys. Listen, I've got some questions for you. Let me tell you what the questions are before we cut off. I want to talk about who your dad was. I want to talk about how common this is. I want to talk about calling the police. I want to talk about what's happening in churches. And we're going to talk about how to help an abuser. Guys, join us now. I'm going to post this up in about 20 seconds. Brigitta's going to answer these questions.
And I'm going to just check on the kids one more time.
Okay.
All right, I'll see you in a minute, guys.
Okay.
People, it's a deep topic, man. It's a deep topic, and you know, my friend is gonna just tear it up. She's seen a lot, she's done a lot. She doesn't tell lies. You know what I'm saying? Carvin, listen, man, she's the real one. I'm telling you, Pippa, this is serious. This is serious. Let's go. Let's go. Briggs.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to save that to... I'm going to save these two. Okay. Briggetta, how common is this problem of domestic violence? I want to actually tie it to the question of it's happening in church as well. How common is this in your experience?
For me, it's very, very common. It's more common than we actually recognize. I think this has come my way so many times in the last 6 months, so many times, and I think sometimes people feel that this is a difficult thing to say, but that they should stay in a relationship, whether they be married or not, if they are being domestically abused. So, and a lot of people, because they go to church, they believe they should stay. They should stay in a marriage where they are getting beaten to a pulp.
Because you don't get divorced.
Because they're told you can't get divorced.
So there's a culture of, that actually really perpetuates and facilitates.
It does. It facilitates and it perpetuates. If you are a married person and you are getting beaten, it's the worst thing. For me personally, I'm not staying with anybody who's going to beat the living dog outside of me. But
biblically, let me throw this at you, man. I'm a troublemaker like this, but
go on.
I think it's important. But biblically, you should only be getting divorced through infidelity.
Really?
Yeah. That's why there's no biblical grounds for you to get divorced.
Okay, so for me, you have to have a relationship with God. God, first of all, tell you to marry that man.
Okay.
Wow.
No.
Okay. Secondly, did God say you should stay while he beats you into the ground? Because I know people who they can't come back now.
What? They can't come back? What do you mean?
They can't come back because they're not even the same people. They don't even know how to come back. They're locked away. So far, we can't reach them. The only way they're getting reached is through God. So I don't agree.
Okay.
Because I believe God talks about love first. And that is not love. Violence is not love. If you're getting beaten within a marriage relationship, I know that a lot of married people try to, it's like the church maybe sometimes tries to adopt this stance where you shouldn't leave him or you shouldn't leave her, because it's happening to men and women. So if that person is not speaking or listening to God, then you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be in it.
Somebody says here, God told me to leave as this man was abusing his temple, my body.
There you go.
There was also another comment that says, abuser is at times encouraged by the church, that you can't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if that's a man in position or a woman in position with an upstanding character. There's no way no one's going to believe you. Do you know what I mean? I remember years ago, one camp meeting, I don't know even know if it was
like a convention.
There was like somebody facilitated a group and people came out of there.
I was there one. Is that when and they spoke on domestic violence?
Yeah.
People came out in droves.
Droves. In the church. Yeah.
In the church. I remember
saying that they were being that they were being abused. It was the first kind of time that such a conversation was held. I think it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. First time we had a conversation like that in the open. I mean, I was young for that. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't in a relationship then, so it was just kind of just like talk. But to hear that people came out in their droves saying that they were, and this was I used to have that standard of it. It was the pastor's wife. Now I'm just like, you're just a woman like us. He's just a man like us. But it was shocking to see certain faces, certain people
Standing up and speaking as well. I remember one particular woman, I won't obviously mention her name, but I remember her standing up and I was thinking, you!
Yeah.
And she stood up. No, seriously. And when she told us some of the stuff, you know, how he nearly broke her back, you know, and she said, and he will be the best Christian on Sabbath.
Wow. He
will be, you know, he taking Bible study and all of this stuff.
Let me tell you something, right? I'm felt a story. This is the most frustrating thing to hear. If you are not a man, people learn. Have a look at your husbands and wives. If they are one person at church and someone else at home, you've got problems. You've got problems.
Trust me.
Like if they are, and I'm talking about a massively stark difference where someone is where someone is just smiling, they've got position, they're preaching the most beautiful this and that, they're running this class, they're the head of this department, and you're the wife or the husband, and you know that that person's a dog at home. He doesn't even need to be laying hands on you. You've got a problem, a massive problem.
Huge.
I'm saying, people, if you are not ministering at home first, don't go to church.
I think the problem is compounded when you're attached to a religious organization, because there's a big act where if you didn't have to go to church or anywhere where masses of people were seeing you, you'd just be doing your thing and then going shop and coming home. But when you are there in the public eye, on the stage, playing that everything's a certain way, and then the car door shuts and you know on the way home you're going to be pulped, you know what I mean? It's a different, what does that do to your opinion of God, to your opinion of the faith? Do you know what I mean? How do you feel? It must weaken your faith in some way, or make you just not see people as authentic at all.
So someone is asking, or someone's saying they appreciate the honesty on this controversial topic still. Misty Clutter and Clean said, I may have missed this, but what was the final nail in the coffin when you decided, this is it, I need to get out? And who did you tell? Final nail.
Oh, I told my sister. She was the first person that I spoke to. I mean, she was like, you paid so much money for your chairs. Go back and get your chairs.
We say things like...
I was like,
don't let them have
go back and get your chairs. Because you knew how much. Do you see what I mean? I didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
All I cared about was getting out of there. She's like, just go and get your stuff. I was like, you know, so in the end, she went back, I mean, and got my chairs, you know. But I wasn't interested in anything else, you know, and I left it. It's only years later I thought about all the memories that I left, you know, the crib, all the stuff that was in the loft. I left everything.
And what was the final nail in the coffin?
Final nail? Just the trauma, having to go through this again.
What do you mean? So hold on. Before you answer, I think this question is pivotal for some people who have got to come to terms with their decision to leave. So your thinking on this question is like, in a sense, teaching someone how to get out. Okay.
So for me, I have my children, and I was like thinking to myself, am I gonna do this? They are not gonna. Is this gonna just be perpetuated throughout my whole life? Are they going to witness this and see me this way and then grow up to think that it is okay for me to stay in this? Am I going to stay? And that was it for me. That was it. I remember I could have left and just had a carrier bag and had nothing more. I would have just been happy.
Yeah. That's deep.
I'm happy. So
I really appreciate that answer. That's a deep answer. So we've got another point here. I also believe that there are so many different spectrums to domestic violence, such as coercive behavior, and even now legally, it's financial abuse and emotional abuse are now legal forms of domestic violence. In how it's been presented, the devil is in sheep's clothing. Yeah, them church man, who's always there. They're the ones with the tie the tightest.
Stopping the blood flow to the head.
Emotional, sexual, physical, mental abuse. Yeah, very calculated. Pastors are just now being educated about this for real. It's like waking up from a nightmare and saying no more. I've done that before, you know. How
Miss Declutter and Clean said to the response to your question, your answer, what you just gave, your statement, she just said, powerful, thank you.
Briggetta.
Yeah.
Who was your dad?
Who was my dad? My dad, you know, fun and joke aside, but he was an article abuser.
What's article abuser? These are old school words you're using for millennials now.
So, you know,
that sounds like
my husband's laughing, but
the article Don Garden.
but
sorry.
No, but I think, okay, so I'm gonna tell my story. I didn't find out a lot of my dad's abuse because I was the baby, so I was shielded from a lot of things. So I thought he was a great dad, and when I looked back and recounted some of the things that happened, I was like, this does not make any sense whatsoever. I was told a story that my dad took a hammer and hit my mum in the head with it. And I thought that could never, ever have happened. It's impossible. And then I was told to go and look for the article. It was in the newspaper. So I went and looked for the article because I asked him and he said, oh, are you think that madman? Madman can't take hammer, hit woman in the head with it. So I said, okay. Let me ask him. So one day I sat and I had a conversation with him and he said, no, he didn't do it. And I said, but you did, because your name was printed in the paper. You did do it. And that is the only time he admitted when I caught him. But
Mine didn't admit it when I confronted him with a big belly and said, I saw what you did.
Did you see it?
Yeah, because I was the oldest. I said I saw everything and I recounted the stories for him to hear. And he said, you don't know what I'm talking about. And to this day, he was still saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that's it. Because, and this is why I said to you, when it's difficult for a person or a child or a person who's gone through abuse to look at things through the abuser's eyes, because the abuser has to first accept. Because I have learned to forgive my dad.
Yes.
But I believe he's still an abuser.
Yeah. So it's not.
He's an abuser. And he doesn't know how to be anything else but an abuser.
You know, as you said that, because our experiences mirror, I am learning to forgive mine. And I said that little boy, when he was a little boy, saw abuse. And he mimicked that. And now he cannot get out of the cycle because he's still an abuser. No matter who he gets now, unless Christ comes in and transforms his heart, or he gets some kind of therapy or help, which he's very proud to do, remain with this abuser for the rest of our lives. And it's a fact for me that I'm learning to accept, and I'm learning to understand that something happened to this little boy to make him turn out how he did as a man. And so that leads me to have a level of compassion for him, where I'm saying there's something missing there. There's something that you saw that you shouldn't have seen, and something you've imitated.
Oh, absolutely. He has sat and told me things. You know, I remember one of the stories he said to me, you know, you want to look at me through your own eyes, but I'll come back to that. But you know, he was telling me about my own gran, and that when she reprimanded him, it was with a knife.
What? And did what?
So when he did something wrong, she used to chop him with it. So she would cut him because that's.
Bloody hell, man.
But you see, the thing is as well, something that we haven't even gone into is that a lot of this stems right back.
Yes.
From a particular place.
Yeah, say the place, Briggs.
It's from slavery.
Yeah.
So that's how they learned. They were taught. Yes. So my gran, that's how she didn't think it was nothing to take a knife and cut him. And he told me about, he had a big slash on his hands many times. If he didn't get something right, he was cut with a knife. So for him, you know, for him, it was normal behavior for him to behave in the way he did.
He's a victim himself.
He was a victim himself.
Yeah.
But he thinks that mindset is okay.
Yeah.
Which is different. Well, no, there's a difference between someone who knows they're doing wrong but can't, that struggles to stop, and someone who's just justifying themselves.
This is it.
And you're saying your dad is the one to justify himself.
Yes, he justified it. But I think if he was much younger, I don't think that he was much younger and he was shown. Yeah. This is not correct. This is not the correct behavior. He was allowed to behave a certain way for a certain period of time, and this is why I think it's really important that we talk out now, so that we can help the generation that are coming behind us.
Yes, 100%, Bruce.
It is 100% unacceptable.
Yes.
I don't care. He could be the finest looking guy with the most amount of money. If he is abusing you, you need to leave, and vice versa. She could be the finest looking woman. She could have everything. If she is abusing you, you need to leave her. I'm sorry, I do not agree with staying in a relationship when you are being abused, because I believe that it causes more problems later on. It causes more problems for you. It causes more problems for the children that are involved in it. You know, and I think these are some of the things that I would like for us to deal with. First of all, let yourself off the hook. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people think because they're in a relationship, they don't want the stigmatism of the fact that their relationship has broken down or their marriage has broken down. Your sanity and your life is more important than a picture that is not perfect or true.
I need to record that one.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense.
Say it again, Bruce.
Your sanity
and your, I can't even remember what I said.
Your sanity is more important.
Yeah, so your sanity is more important than this perfect picture that has been painted that you want to keep hold of. Do you understand? It's more important than that, because it's not true. That picture isn't true.
Wow. You see that? So we're like, I'm happy to put up with someone taking parts of me and destroying my children for a dream.
That ain't real.
And the chances of that dream coming true are actually less than zero because you're in abuse.
Yeah.
He'll change. She'll change.
I just want to, you know, just shout out to a few people who are on here who were part of that whole journey. Karen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I really appreciate that you're on here. She was there. She witnessed all of this stuff. So she knew what I went through at that particular time. So I really appreciate a lot of you who've come on here to support. So
that's beautiful.
Say that.
That's beautiful.
Helen, Quakey Ebony, she just put the quote up. Guys, copy it down, take a picture or whatever you got to do.
It came from Briggs's heart. Your sanity and life is more important than a perfect picture you want to paint. Boom.
Boom.
Somebody said straight after that. You get
But we're talking now about who's Kalicia? Is it Kalicia?
Karen, my good friend. My
yeah,
brother.
man.
Like,
All right.
she's the one who was there with me. She's been there from the beginning, so she
Big
knows
up, man.
what it's like.
So we're looking at the fact that abusers do have a history. How do we help the abuser? And then I want to look at forgiveness of the abuser. I mean, we may not have all the answers, but we have to talk about that. And that is important as well. We've got to help those who are offenders. You have to help them. Otherwise, we just cause them to bottle it up and then pursue that line of action with someone else later. We want to help them. Yeah.
So what I will say, and I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. So I'll come to the forgiveness after this.
Yeah, after. Yeah.
But for an abuser, there has to be some form of acceptance about what you have done. You have to face the reality that even if you don't, because sometimes people don't actually recognize that this is them. This is actually you. Do you understand? You know, because you're being told about what you've done and how you make people feel. They don't actually recognize that. You have to accept that you are an abuser, that you know what I mean? You are abusing another person. And then you have to take the time to recognize what it is that you are doing. And then understand what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Because sometimes some people have to relearn what normal is. Some people don't actually know what normal is. And this is something that we need to also talk about, because some people have no idea what that means, what it is. what is normal, you know? So.
It's interesting you say that, because there's all types of offenders in society that we don't like to see, even by people who are standing around us in our very supposedly safe communities, but they don't act normal when the doors are closed. It's not like they don't know, but they struggle with being civil and they struggle with not putting their hands on someone or being verbally abusive, or they struggle with not raping. They've got to let it out that way.
Because that's what they know. That's what they know, innit, Curtis? That's what they know. I just want to say one thing on forgiveness. And I have forgiven and moved on. Doesn't mean because you forgive someone that you have to engage in some kind of relationship with that person, or you have to even speak with that person. For me, my freedom came when I didn't have to have anything to do with the person at all. It was freedom for me, because if you actually think about it in reality, if I wouldn't have this person as my friend, why would I want to talk to them just because we share children together? There's no reason. My children are grown up and they can live life. So
what does it mean to forgive?
It means to let go of that, to let go of it, and to make your peace with that situation and move on. Because sometimes you're not going to get, you know, like some people want to say, oh, I want to go and tell that person what they did to me and how they did this, and, you know, how they made me feel, and, you know, you did this and you did this and you did this. Sometimes you're not going to get that. Sometimes you're not, and it will make you feel better in the moment. But what if you are not in that position? What if that person hasn't received acceptance in their mind? Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't have acceptance. So they don't see what they did as wrong. And this will continue throughout their line. So you just have to make peace. For me, faith is important for me. I've made peace with God. I've forgiven that person and I've walked on. I am grateful. I'm grateful to God because I have 2 beautiful children out of it, you know. However, because I left, they maintain their sanity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They maintain their sanity. And that is what we need to be looking at. It is not more important for me to be, to stay in something than to look at the jewels or the gifts that I have been given and keep them in something that is not helping them to become the jewels that God gave them to you to become. You know, that's the most important thing, that they grow into those gems and they shine. They cannot shine while being buried.
No way. Hey, that's another one.
I'm writing it down.
I wanted to ask, how does it practically look to let go? Is it a one-off, like I blew it into the field like a dandelion seed, or is it a continual daily process of I'm letting you go, I'm letting this go, I'm letting the offense go, I'm letting it go? How does it work practically?
Was it an instant thing? Was it one big prayer?
No, I think it came in stages. For me, it came in stages. And once I was free of how I felt, I think I went through stages, because first of all, I lived in fear in my mind for a long time. You know, I lived in fear till I hated men, full stop. And Curtis, you know, the therapy I gained from Sean and Curtis, like, you know, they just talk to me and say, this is nonsense. You can't hate every man on the planet just because of one person. It's not fair. It doesn't even make sense.
But interestingly, you said that he was still in the picture at the time, quite annoyingly.
Yeah.
So he was lurking around, but I think that you were on the better side of that hill.
I was.
But yeah.
I have to tell this story. I have to tell it.
All right, go on.
Only because I think it gives honor to our Sean, who's passed away as well. But I always remember this, and I thank you for this, Curtis. I remember, so I'd got on the other side, and I was still suffering with anxiety, and I didn't understand what anxiety was then.
Yeah.
Because I was still going through. And I had to drop the kids off to their dads or their grandmas or what have you. And Curtis was like, he would ask questions like, why are you doing that then? You know, why are you going to drop them? Doesn't he have a car?
He was a bugger, you know.
He was.
That brother drove me nuts. You had no car. You were dropping the kids off to him, and he had, don't stop. I was like, do you know
some of the things that I did, you know, this is what I'm saying, the mindset that you gain over this, you have to become free from. I was taking a bus, a train, and a tube just to drop off the kids when he had a car.
Come on.
And I was thinking, what kind of dumb, stupid...
And he wasn't working.
And I'm not working.
And he wasn't working. Don't start me off. It's coming back now. That's serious.
And he's like, you know what? You better tell him to come and pick them kids up. I was like, okay. You know, one of them... And this is how it went. This is how it went, one. This is how it went. Curtis on one side and Sean on the other. They're listening to my conversation, you know.
Yes.
On the phone. I'm hot, you know. I'm hot. Talking on the phone. And I could hear him. And then Curtis spoke, and then he could hear the guy in the background. So now he's mad. I felt the shame nearly set. I nearly combusted from the shame. The heat nearly set me alight. I'm not even joking. Anyway, I remained calm in my person, but I did everything. When I came off the phone, I knew he was on the way up. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to get these two out of here? Because otherwise, I'm going to experience the most.
This is Briggetta. You got to go now. You just got to go.
I would have made them stay.
I was trying my best. And, you know, it's like these two are like homing beams. The two of them are like, we're not going anywhere. You know?
Going nowhere.
Nah, man.
We're not going anywhere. And Curtis was like, Briggs, if he comes in this house and he's disrespectful, we're going to put him outside. And my heart's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it's going to broke out.
The karate fight at them times.
I'm telling you, it's going to broke out. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening?
No, man.
But you know, I have to give God praise because that situation needed to happen.
Yeah.
Because I thought he's going to go on like a bad man. That's the day I understood he weren't no bad man at all.
Yes.
Go on.
And afterwards, the two of them, so what happened is one stood on one side of the door, the other one stood on the other side of the door. When he knocked the door, I was like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. And then, you know, I opened the door and he came in and he got the kids and he left as quiet as a mouse.
Sometimes that's what you need is two brothers to just show them something. And I remember saying to my dad, and I still honor that commandment, but there's a caveat to it. I said, if I was my mum, I would have got my brothers to bruck you up, man.
Listen.
She had 5. I said, a black bag would have been on your head and you would have gone for a long drive.
Come on, man. Come on.
Do you know what I mean?
Listen.
And because it puts in a boundary. But I think back then, and even now, there's some kind of level of embarrassment of that's for them business. They let them sort it out. Instead of saying, that's my sister, that's my child,
Yeah.
don't you dare.
We need some black bags, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So what they did for you in just being there as two brothers in your house to say, really?
It was miraculous. And the reason why I say that is because afterwards they had this thing where they used to say, if you was to give this a name, what would it be?
Gosh, you got a memory, man.
Give it a name. Give it a name.
Name that spirit.
Name that spirit.
Fred.
It's a spirit of mind control, and I'm not joking with you. It blew me away because I was like, I was fretting for nothing. But you're not a bad man. You're not a bad man. I'm like, God is able. And from that point on, I walked differently. I was like, I'm walking differently because I don't need to. And that's the thing as well. A lot of little girls, a lot of little boys don't understand that they can walk differently.
What do you mean?
Okay.
So there are a lot of role models. Mine was Curtis. Mine was Sean. And they were the dads to me I didn't have. I would say brothers, but they were the dads that I didn't have because I didn't have anyone to show me what the right way was. And
I didn't even know.
It was quite profound. I say this, and I say this to John as well. If it wasn't for them two, I wouldn't be married today.
Really?
Because I had decided in my mind that I wasn't interested in no man. I wasn't interested, and the amount of counselling that I went through, you know, the amount of counselling that I went through, and now that picture that was painted for me, now the only kind of men and women that are in my life are the ones that hold up a true banner. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I've got many of them. And if you lot need to have proper conversations with proper men, I know loads of them.
Yeah, man.
You know, and we're talking serious. Do you know what I mean? Seriously, there are a lot of men and there are a lot of very, very good women role models out there that will talk you through it. You do not have to stay. You do not have to be brutalized.
Yes.
You know?
Call the police, you said.
Yeah.
Let's look at that. That's coming off of the back of what you're talking about right now. You do not have to stay. So back in the day, it was just a
Sorry, I have to turn this fan on because it's. Oh, sorry.
do what you're doing. So back in the day, can you hear me though?
I can hear you.
So back in the day, you know, back in the late 90s, up to the late 90s, I guess in the, about 10 years now. Before then, police were like, look, are you going to press charges? Are you going to press charges?
2000.
Now people listen, because look, this is a I mean, I had training on it. There's a complicated situation where women won't just leave when they're being abused. It won't just happen for most women. The majority are they're going to have to get lashed a few times. Now, if you call the police, you just need to make a phone call, 999, or get someone to make that phone call for you. And they will take you out of the house or remove the person from the house. And they will do their best to protect you. Well, like you said, with or without a charge. Briggetta, what are you saying? Call the police is what you said.
See, that's the thing. We're living in a time. We're living in a deep time. Where, okay. Let's just be real, okay?
Come on.
So, remember that conversation I had with you about the person that I went to their house and they were in a neck brace? I called the police, and what happened?
How long ago was that?
When was Kidbrook?
15.
No.
More than that.
No, it was before I was married.
20.
Before
20 years ago.
Before I met you, yeah.
So 20
I was there.
years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I called the police and it made no difference. So I had to call in the heavies. I had to call my family.
What can you do? What can you do?
And I'm not trying to be funny. A lot of these guys don't understand that you have family.
Yes, that's what I said.
And when they understand you have family, then they come to the door crying.
Yes, that's what my uncle should have done.
My experience.
Yeah.
Because when it wasn't me, just me, because when I came to the door,
Uncle Jace, what?
my daughter's something else, you know.
Whee! Keisha, you're killing us, man. Go on.
Yeah. So, you know, there are members of my family who don't play. And I'm telling you, that day, I don't know what saved that individual, but that person started crying. So the big bad person that was putting people in neck braces understood what day of the week it was. Understood what day of the week it is. Sometimes this is, as a community, we need to come together, and sometimes people need to get paid a visit. 3 or 4 men go and have a conversation with them.
Just have a conversation.
2 men standing in the doorway when you
with the black bag just in case.
Yeah.
And a taser.
Where mice become less than mice.
Oui.
Because
it's real.
It's real. You see, for me, and I'm telling anybody out there, listen, go to your community, go to the people that you know will address what's going on.
Yeah. Because
conversations need to be had.
You're not promoting violence. You're talking about letting people know you got back.
Violence. I'm promoting having a conversation, but with the elders or those people who can address it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I just think it's.
Sometimes
I think it's a village mentality. Briggs. Let's bring this to the village, man.
Yeah.
Let's sort out because this ain't right.
Yeah.
And I think if we had done that years ago, we would have saved lives.
I just want to talk.
I just want to talk.
The village just wants to talk. You get me?
Hey.
We just knocked your heart, and yes, we got fire in our hand, but we just want to talk.
Yeah. I got a gun here. I'm not gonna really pull the trigger, but let me show you something. I just want to talk to you.
Just want to talk.
You know. But okay. Listen, there's a couple more things we want to hit before. We got to read some comments as well. So we've got 20 minutes, right? Not even 20. We've got yeah. Okay. So I've got hold on.
Village mentality.
We done that, and you call the police.
It's a different situation now than it was 20 years ago. There's a zero
so it's not a thing where you can call the police now, because unless you're expecting that person not to come back alive, and I'm not doing that. I'm not calling the police. I'm gonna call the elders, because I know it's gonna get dealt with properly that way.
Yeah, everyone's got cousins, and some of us got brothers, but everyone's got cousins. People step up.
Look after your
people. Don't tolerate none of that nonsense.
No, and that is the thing as well. What I think the difficulty with me was because I came from a household where, so my sisters, I had 2 sisters, and then I had 4 aunts, and there was no men really there. And when people know that, they take advantage, because they think you ain't got nobody, until they discover
you got cousins,
you got a village.
Yes.
And the village will come to you in a bigger kind of huge kind of way. So
it's important you said that. I like that. I never expected to hear that, but I'm happy about that.
Yeah, bring the village.
Bring the village.
Yeah.
And you have to bring the village, because if you don't, this is what safeguarding is about.
You will die if you don't.
I'm telling you. And the thing is, we need to be teaching our children this.
Yes. Say something.
Yeah.
Even my mum said, listen, your dad, if you are going to call your father for anything, make sure you don't want to see the person again. Or you don't want to have a conversation with that person again.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to, especially when it gets dangerous. My situation was dangerous. Really dangerous. And it's hard. Sorry, what were you going to say, Juan?
No, I was saying, with the dangerous situations, there's been times when we have been part of the village. So not only have I seen domestic violence as a child, but I had a friend who at 16 was experiencing it. And I remember being there one day. We were there and we were going to go and get our hair relaxed all the way in East London, because there was like some kind of promotion going on. I used to go far to go and get the hair did for £25. And we was going, and I think she must have said to him, it's all right, I'll pay for the cab. He lifted off. And all I remember was that I felt like I'm 5 again, and I'm experiencing this. And what he did is he kicked the door lock, so it broke. So we were all trapped in the house, me and her, and he was kicking her up around the house. I remember I just thought, no more of this, and I lay on top of her, and he was coming down with a metal pole, ready to lick her, but I jumped in the way. And it was like, even though I was part of that village, it wasn't enough. I was a 16-year-old girl. Do you know what I mean? With my 16-year-old friend with a 1-year-old crying in the cot. And I remember she came from a very strict Jehovah's Witness background. And that village had left her because she did things out of order as far as they was concerned. And so sometimes people who, what do you say to those, like my friend, who could have benefited from a village, but the village who was her faith and her family, they left her because she had a child out of wedlock. She didn't have a brother. She was the oldest. There was no uncles. There was just us as our little, skinny 16-year-old friends. What do you say for someone who doesn't have a village? And it's in the year it's in the year 19 whatever, 1992, and there's no zero tolerance.
You know, let me just say this, you know, God is amazing. I just have to say that, because I look at my girls, because I left, because they saw the village that was created. If they sought and created villages of their own.
Okay.
Back then, it was a difficulty, but I have watched some serious things go on with my kids, and I've watched them, boy, speak to some bad man out on road, and the respect they've received because of it. A village, you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to talk to the community and be out in the community as well. Our villages are out there. Do you know what I mean? It's not just inside. It's not just the uncles. It's not just the aunt. It is the community.
Okay.
It is a spirit. It is a community.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we have to build. That is what we have to build. We have to build it from the ground up. This is how it was done years and years ago. You know, you got to understand, even in slavery times, remember they were different from us. They didn't have what we have.
Yeah.
They created songs to pass on messages. Do you understand? They created they unified in oneness of heart and soul. And that's the kind of mindset we need to adapt and adopt.
So the village doesn't have to be your blood relative, couple of brothers or uncles.
Curtis is not my blood relative.
Yeah.
And he was my village.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Cameron is not my, you know, blood relative, and he's my village. My husband is not my, you know, do you understand what I'm saying? The village is who, do you know what I mean? They're the people that are set in stone, you know, that will teach you the right way. And another thing is, it's not about age. It's about responsibility. It's about honesty. It's about respect. It's about so many things.
Yes.
Because some of the people that I love beyond myself have taught me the greatest lessons. They are much younger than me. Because they are leaders that want to go.
Yeah, much younger than you.
Just a little bit.
Do you know what I mean?
Somebody said a lot of them are cowards and will prey on seemingly weak women. They know who they can play with. Somebody else says here, village mentality promotes protection.
That's right.
As far as I'm concerned, Juanita, that's me, is as much my responsibility as my young family who must stick together. That's my brother Cam, so that's beautiful. Good point. Somebody says, but what if the person is being abused? But what if the person being abused, one doesn't think that they are being abused? But
that's the thing.
The village know that they are, and they are resistant to family, friends, etc. And the village and cut you off.
So this is what I was saying to you. Remember what I was saying to you, that remember, how is it, the question that Curtis asked me, how is it I didn't know and I didn't see? This is why you need a hot minute to just sit down and gather thoughts and actually think about what is going on around you, and actually being able to relate it to what's going on here? What is happening here? Oh, I'm by myself. Are you by yourself? You do everything on your own anyway. Do you know what I mean? Gathering your thoughts. What happens? Let me just say something. What happens is a lot of people, when they are in domestic violence situations, they become encapsulated by the person. So what happens is that person surrounds themselves so that is all they see and hear, and they don't even want to let that person out of their sight, because letting that they surround that person. when the person gets enough time to spend on their own and speak and understand, and do you know what I mean? Conversate. You remove them out. This is why a lot of them, once they understand, they don't come back. But being encapsulated is a hard thing. It's a hard thing because when you're in it, you can't see anything but what you are surrounded by.
Listen, we've got 10 minutes left. No, we've got 7 minutes left, right? And I'm just getting my teeth into it. So we're going to have a round 2 on another date. But there's one more thing we both want to ask you.
Which is the most important question.
Talk to us for just a couple of minutes about John. Who is John?
Who is John?
You better answer this right.
Of course I'll answer it right, more than. You know, I remember when I met him, he wasn't the way that the church told me he would come. So, you know this church mentality where, you know, he's supposed, you know, this perfect. I remember being in church for 5 years, and I remember my good friend was sitting beside me, and she said, you know, I can't see your man in here. And I was so disappointed because I was thinking, am I going to be by myself for the rest of my life? And I remember when I met him, he came to me as a sheep in wolf's clothing. I always tell this story because on the outside, he might have looked a particular way, but his gentleness, his love, his respect, and his honesty, that was the most important thing for me. That's who he is to me. He does everything for me, you know, and he's been like the saving grace for me.
God gave you a double dose, man.
Double, triple. I remember when
for your trouble.
you know, and that's a nice thing about it because, you know, when I look at my life, when I look back now, I just think, you know, I couldn't have hoped for anything better. You know, the two of us together, I can't even see us parted. You know, I'll say this: we've been together for 18 years.
Wow!
And in
time already.
18 years on the 26th of August this year.
That's our wedding day.
How is it? Wait, and is that how long you've been married or how long you've been together?
That's how long we've been together. So in August, I would say in those 18 years, there's only been 7 days we haven't spoken. Even people don't understand it. Even if I leave, sometimes I go to the shop and we're talking on the phone. People are like, you just left him. Why are you on the phone with him? Just like, I don't understand it. We speak, you know, 5-6 times a day. If I'm work, we speak all the time. Yeah, that is what you call a relationship. That you're plugged into the other person. That you respect the other person.
Too much talking, man. We don't want all this talking.
You know, that you don't have to say anything. They just know.
Yeah, man. That's the one. That right there.
Listen to me. I'm telling you, one of the greatest things my husband can do is cook up the baddest meal on the planet. And he knows food is the way to my soul.
He got you, man.
Curtis, listen, on the first couple of days, you know, breadfruit, you know. Breadfruit, that's my favorite food in the whole world.
Wait.
You know, breadfruit, that was it, man. For me, he's a proper leader, you know. He's in control of his household, you know. He is an exceptional father, exceptional. by far. Like, you know, he loves his children to bits and will do anything for them. You know, and I think.
And your kids, your older daughters, because you've got one with him.
Yeah.
I don't want to say her name, but
Chaya.
the other Chaya, okay. And the two older ones, they see him as dad.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, one of them just said he's the best father figure.
Wow. Listen, we want to pray. I mean, we're gonna have to do part 2.
But Briss, can you pray for a few things? But we've got like 2 minutes or one even.
1 minute.
For those who are still in the situation, for those who are on their way out, and for those who are out and still need some strength, please.
You've got 60 seconds for it. It will change, but we you know, yeah.
Father Eternal, we just want to thank you so much for bringing us all together, that we might be able to spend time fellowshipping, talking, helping to create a bridge, Lord Jesus, for a lot of the young people who are out there who don't know where to go. Father, we ask that you will help them through this platform to understand they can come to any of us. They can come and talk, and it will be confidential, and we will help as best we can. Help us, Lord Jesus, to create this village that we speak about. Just want to thank you for Juanita and Curtis and having this platform for us to be able to walk forward and to continue to teach. Is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Praise God.
No, you thank you, Lord, and thank you, Briggetta, for just putting it out there, man. Big up to John.
Yes.
It's nice to hear. I know he's not a cameraman really, but tell him
the love.
He can hear you. He's online.
Yeah.
He's here. He's listening.
And you know what? We're gonna have to part 2 you, because we want to talk about your relationship, even if it's just you. I know, because I know you, and I know if you're happy, it's John. And I know you made a really good. You pick up a good one there.
And people said on here that you were blessed, you were lucky. So the next time we speak, we just want to allow that opportunity to express those blessings.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
People, call the police or tell someone.
Don't call the police.
Call the police. Call the village. You have to call the police.
You have to call the police. They're different now, Briggs.
Well, yeah, I don't believe it. So don't believe it.
We've got to say that.
First, and then
we've got to say that.
Call the village.
You got to tell someone.
We've got to say that as professionals as well.
And don't talk to people in your church, and do not call the pastor to deal with it.
Then we'll deal with the police after.
Yeah, well, and don't call the elders to deal with it. If you're being abused, don't tell your church folk. Tell someone outside of that.
Tell someone outside of that.
Yeah. We forgot to say that.
We're saying it now, though.
Call Jesus. Your daughter said call Jesus. Look, we've got 20 seconds.
Jesus will fix
Don't
his
call
business.
Tyrone. Call Jesus.
Call Jesus. He will fix his business.
Oh, Keisha, you give us
inside and out. We've got 15 seconds left. Briggs, we love you. We really thank you for your time and your heart and your transparency. It's helped somebody on here, at least it has.
See you guys tomorrow.
We've got Pastor G on tomorrow. Please join us.
See you later.